We move now on to the first session of the Congress, and that's the first of two keynote presentations that we have. Just to explain that the keynotes, each keynote presenter will possibly have time for one or two questions after their presentation. For the normal paper sessions, you've possibly noticed in your programme that all speakers will participate in a panel session at the end of each session to answer questions and answers. So the keynote and the panel session is done slightly differently. The first keynote then is Jamie Hindhaugh, who is Chief Operating Officer for BT Sport. Jamie is coming down now. We just need to put the radio microphone on.
Morning. So, BT Sport. Bit of audience engagement before we start. Put your right hand up if you have BT Sport at home. Put your left hand up and keep your right hand up if you've watched BT Sport. Put your hands down if you don't like BT Sport, and then you better put your hands back up there. Okay, interesting question because, and I've got my phone here to stop me because I'm doing a presentation that normally takes an hour and a half in 20 minutes, okay? So this could be fun. I'm going to talk very, very fast, probably a lot of rubbish, but try and keep up with me. The interesting thing is, asking that question about BT Sport, is I was just sitting at the back there thinking 6 years ago today, BT Sport didn't exist, which to a lot of people is a surprise because it's now seen as part of the establishment. 6 years ago today, I was just getting ready to leave the BBC. So 6 years ago today, BT was a telco without a broadcasting arm. 5 years last month, BT launched 3 linear channels plus an app doing live sport. So if you can work out the maths, that means we had 9 months from when I joined BT, and my job was to actually build and launch BT Sport, to go from concept to delivery. Really fast journey, for instance, and it's quite nice coming back here actually, so I do go off in meanders at times, but I used to be head of procurement at the BBC, boo hiss, yes, and I was involved with the initial designs for the BBC being up here, and shocking to say this is the first time I've been back in about 4 years, so it's nice to see it up here. But I was thinking back because the build for the BBC here took quite a long time to build, quite standard within the industry, takes about 4 or 5 years to build TV complexes from scratch. If I tell you the BT Sport, which is based in the Olympic Park, from getting the keys to a building to building an 86,000 square foot production hub with the biggest TV studio in the UK, 2 other studios, 9 galleries, 24 edit suites, 3 green rooms, 3 makeup rooms, 13 dressing rooms. The first DPP compliant broadcaster in the UK was all built in 18 weeks. From start to finish. That's from the physical build and the technical fit out. And what you see on air today is still from that 18 weeks of doing that. The challenge for us for BT Sport, and again I will meander slightly, was we came into a very competitive market. So those of you who are as young as me, and there's not many, I've grown up watching football on Sky Sports. Really credible broadcaster. The one area in BT you won't hear anyone having a pop at Sky Sports is BT Sport. And they did it in a certain way. And if you look at the competition that came up against BT, against Sky before BT Sport came along, there was a pattern there. They had a 3-year cycle, maybe got into a second cycle with the Premier League, and then that business didn't continue. There was Satanta, ESPN, etc., because of the strength of Sky. And there were 2 key things that I identified when I joined BT that were the driver for that. The first was that Sky retailed those other channels on behalf of them. So they had that direct correspondence with the customer. And when you've got that contact with the customer, we all know that you can upsell, you can promote your own products and therefore push where people go. So BT quite rightly took on that opportunity to say, right, the only place you can get BT Sport from at the moment over the Virgin, is still the case, is you have to speak to BT. Really important move. The second move, which was the key thing for us, was identifying what we needed to do to build credibility. Okay, so building that production hub, and it is still state of the art. I mean, you know, it's the biggest LED lit studio in the world. Up until last month when I ripped it out, it was the only TV studio in the world with a glass floor. which was LED underlit. It's 3 studios in one, so you can go, we're quite often live on air on 3 different channels with 3 different programs coming from the one studio space. The studios were designed in a way that when we went on air, we could do live shows, we could do 4 live shows in one evening with one crew. So you start driving the economics down and lifting the quality up. But credibility was absolutely key in all of this. And a key driver of credibility is innovation. So we're there, we are part of a fantastic organisation which is British Telecom, fantastic R&D department, I have to say that because some of them are here. But there are opportunities when you go into an organisation or when you try and build something from within an organisation that already has that footprint. So innovation, absolutely critical, technical stuff, critical, really dangerous though, both of it. And I think the best move we made, and it's a move we still stand by now, it's not doing it because we can, it's not what can we do, it's what do our audience want from us. And we have a very clear editorial strategy that goes right through everything we do. You see it on air, actually physically on air, you get the personality that comes through, and if you look at, and some of the things I'll talk about in a minute, some of the platforms we've launched, the ways we do our programming, the technology we've pioneered and rolled out, it's all about bringing your audience to the heart of sport. Very, very simple. It's a really simple editorial strategy, but if something doesn't fit that, no matter how sexy it is, no matter how glossy it is, I won't do it. So it's absolutely going to the core of what our audiences want. And one of the things I did just want to catch up on, actually say this, and catch up is a good call out, is the comment earlier, which I totally agree with because I do this, around people not watching linear television, there are more people watching it on catch up, etc. I'm coming from this from a bias, and I need to be clear on that. The one bastion where that doesn't work is live sport. Okay, and we need to be really clear on that. So everything I'm talking about is from the context that my job is to broadcast live sport. I don't do drama, I do entertainment, but it's in a sport prowess, and that changes audiences' behaviour. For instance, when you talk about people wanting to watch content on mobiles, wanting to watch content on iPads, etc., to me they're just different size screens. But when you talk about that, if you actually talk, apparently millennials don't watch big TVs anymore. It's rubbish. Live sport, they will go to the biggest screen that's available to them. What people are missing is it's the availability of that screen, because predominantly these guys are still living at home and EastEnders is on the main telly and they want to watch live sport, and therefore they will go to the next biggest screen, whether that's their laptop. And people work down. And that's still 18-year-olds, that's 16-year-olds, that's 14-year-olds. So the live sport challenge for us is quite interesting because we're still in the old world while we really approach the new world. But I'll give you a few facts about BT Sport, and then I really want to talk about what we're looking at next because that's far more exciting. But so we launched in 2013, launched 3 linear channels plus a BT Sport app, which basically what that did is live stream our channels on mobile. The thing that people miss is on our launch, we launched an IP, the IP channels as well. So BT TV, which has been around about 10 years, is an IPTV channel. Everyone talks about it now as some new thing. It's been around a long time. So BT Sport's delivered over IP as well as over satellite on Sky, as well as over cable on Virgin. So we deliver all of those formats. Within 2 years, we went to 13 channel outlets, which is 23 if you count SD and HD variants. We launched a Freeview channel. We became the exclusive rights holders for the Champions League and the Europa League. And when we did that, there was a real opportunity there to start looking at, well, how do you differentiate what you do? We're 2 years old now. We've built the credibility around the personalities we have on our channel. We've built the credibility around the look and the feel of what we do. We've demonstrated we're solid broadcasters that deliver quality, exclusive Champions League, eyeballs on us. What can we do? How can we play with that product to start delivering further on our heart of sport? So 1st of August 2015, we launched the world's first live 4K channel. So you think about the World Cup that's just happened, everyone's talking about 4K as this new exciting concept. We've been delivering it for 3 years, live. The first year we actually had to build our own OB truck because there weren't any. And we had to work with our suppliers to actually build a proof of concept playout for 4K because there wasn't any. That first year it was a separate production workflow. So we had a completely separate truck, separate crew, separate commentators, which I'll talk a little bit about more in a minute. And we did 70 live events in 4K on the BT Sport 4K channel. That summer, when you talk about being at the heart of sport, what's the one thing that's really important about live sport? Is when you're watching live sport, you want to talk about the same experience. So if you're watching in 4K and you've got a different commentary team to the people who are doing the HD variant, which most people are watching, you start losing that point. We're not taking you to the heart of sport then, we're taking you somewhere else. We're taking you away from what everyone else is watching. So we pioneered this, and we did pioneer it, working with our suppliers to create a single workflow solution. So we were the first people to do it. Other people have since followed those workflows. We've shared how we've done that, so the likes of Sky, who are our competitors, but it's important for me that 4K works for them as well. So we have one truck that now turns up on site that captures everything in 4K and converts. I won't use the word down convert because it converts in the truck. It gives a 4K signal, a HD signal and an SD signal. Therefore enabling us to give that one experience to all of our audiences regardless of what format they're watching. Really, really important, and also a lot cheaper, which is obviously just as important. So why 4K? 4K delivered over IP, so it's delivered over BT's network. So there's a logic there from a commercial aspect. It also, so not only does it reinforce the strength of the network, but it also enabled us with regards to cost of distribution of 4K to get that down. So the first year we did 70 live events, going down to a single truck. The next year we did 200. Last year we did 350 live events. We are now completely 4K native for all of our home OBs. Last year we're the biggest producers of live 4K content anywhere in the world. And we do that across all of our major sports. From Speedway, we've done squash, darts. Darts in 4K is quite interesting. And again, the other thing about 4K, how does it fit in with our editorial strategy? 4 times the quality brings you closer to the action, makes you feel like you're nearer to the action, takes you to the heart of sport. That was great. It was great to have a world first on that and deliver all of that. At the same time, we also enhanced our apps. So we recognise that there are a lot of people who want to watch on the go, who want to use a second screen experience alongside the big screen where they prefer to watch if they've got a big screen in front of them. And we launched what we call our enhanced player, which if you've used it is still absolutely brilliant. So it's got a timeline along the bottom, so you can choose all the key incidents, you go backwards and forwards, all the stats are on there, you press a button. Champions League or Europa League night, there's 20 odd games all being broadcast live that you can flick between. You get goal alerts, and we launched it last year as well. Every Premier League game now and every main Champions League game this season, there are live 360 replays within our 2D environment in our app. Only broadcaster in the world to be doing it. And again, why 360? Because you get the different angles, it brings you to the heart of sport. You see where it's going here? It's quite repetitive, but it gets the point across. So we did the 4K thing, great acclaim. We launched the enhanced app. Really popular, and actually it's quite interesting because about 19% of our viewers now watch via the app. So when we launched it was about 10. So you can see there is a pattern, but it's probably people like me who work very long hours, travel a lot, and you're just grabbing the screen because it's there. But these extra functionalities do drive a lot of behaviours. I mean, I instead of talking to my wife at home, I tend to have that up and watch that instead because it's a lot more compatible. So we did that and we saw that, but then we started looking at, okay, so the heart of sport, what does that really mean? So yes, it's bringing you close to the action, but for me, one of the forgotten mediums in broadcast is actually sound. So about 10 years ago, 5.1, since then no one really talking about sound. And I don't know whether, well, you guys will know because you're clever people, but your viewing experience is enhanced by 60% by sound, unbelievably. It makes a difference to what you're seeing. So we were the first broadcaster in the world to launch BT Sport 4K with Dolby Atmos 3D surround sound. We work with Dolby, we put it in our trucks, we work with our R&D teams to bring this to our audience. And just to make things easy, we did the world's first ever live broadcast of a Premier League game live into Amsterdam as a concept with the world's first IP truck with Dolby Atmos and 4K. In September before we launched it in the January the following year, which was 2017. Yeah, 2017. And what was really interesting, the reason I raised that in Amsterdam, not just to show how clever we are, but we did it at the SVG Awards, where you get all of the world's broadcasters all converged together, basically to have a drink. And we put this live Premier League game on, and it was in the 4K screen was there, and we had the Dolby Atmos surround sound. And I had very seasoned executives, very seasoned engineers challenging me that that was not 4K. There's no way that was 4K, that must be at least 8K. And it was purely because of the sound. So again, so what you've got now is you've got 4K, better pictures brings you close to the action. You've got Dolby Atmos brings the sound of the stadium into your house. So you start seeing where this heart of sport is going. Then we wanted to do something a bit more. So being at the heart of sport, being in an event, what do I want to do? I want to be able to walk around, I want to be able to look around, I want to be able to look at it as if I'm at the stadium. And what do we all do at the stadium at half time, for instance? We'll stand up and look around or try and get a beer if the queues are not too big. And the one thing that can enable that is virtual reality. Now, virtual reality is a bit of a dog because I think people have been quite lazy with it. You know, putting one camera on there and you do that and you go, well, that's exciting, and then you move on, don't you? So we were the host broadcast for the Champions League final in 2017. For those who don't know, the host broadcast means we produced every picture that went around the world. That event is bigger than the Super Bowl. So we had about 600 million people engaging with our cameras. We used 72 cameras on it. We did it in 4K, we did it with Dolby Atmos, we did it in HD, we did it in SD. We also did it in HDR, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But we also did it in virtual reality. So we had 12 cameras around the pitch, virtual reality. We used AR graphics to create a virtual jumbotron. We rebuilt a truck so that within the truck, the tiles in the gallery, the director could move each one. So they had the 360 feet and they could turn it round. We had separate commentary and we had separate VR graphics as well. So it was a proper broadcast, 12 cameras directed, giving you that feed. We put it out on YouTube. And the commentary was brilliant because he could literally turn a camera around and go, no, turn around now and look at that person in the audience. So you automatically engaged with your audience. Believe it or not, we had 330,000 people who watched that Champions League final completely in virtual reality. I think it's the biggest live virtual reality event ever delivered. What I would say is our strategy now that I alluded to earlier, for me, that was about signposts and that we can do it and that it's good. The one thing that is really important to remember is sport is also a social event. So, you know, 3D sport, remember that? It doesn't work. Putting glasses on, creating barriers. So you telling me you put on those bloody great big goggles, it's really going to work? No. So we focused on two things. We said, we're here, we can do it, isn't it brilliant? But we're only going to do highlights, we're only going to do live clips, and we're going to do it all through the magic window. So you don't have to put a headset on. You can put your phone up and you can do that, or you can whiz around and do that. So we're using that technology, giving it to our audience, but in a way that makes it compatible with everything else we're doing, because we're, I think, demonstrating we are also sports fans and we know how people want to engage with content. So as I said, we're the only people in the world doing that at the moment. And then just quickly going back, because this summer there was lots of talk about HDR. It's a great opportunity. There's two aspects for it for me, but we did it for the Champions League final in 2017. First broadcaster in the world to do it live, so playing around with the biggest event in the world. And we also delivered it live in PQ, HLG and Dolby Vision as well. We had a live viewing theatre in Dolby's HQ in Soho, where it was broadcast live with Dolby Atmos, 4K, HDR. Probably the single best experience you would ever have outside of being at the live Champions League final. We haven't rolled HDR out further than that because I don't believe there are good enough mechanisms to be able to trigger for people to actually be able to pick up HDR, and therefore I don't want to lie to my audience. I don't want to say I'm broadcasting you HDR, but they're watching it in SDR, not realising they can't get the HDR variant. So we're watching and waiting on that one a little bit. Where we are going though, and as part of BT, this is obviously quite interesting, is I'm now moving mobile first, because I actually think the phone, my phone there, will become the remote control of the future. It will direct content, drive content on big screens. And you know, TVs, what are they? Just bloody big screens, aren't they? So we did in Wembley last year, we did the world's first live HDR broadcast of a Champions League game direct to the iPhone 10 that was released a week later in the UK. We are very keen to look at how we can take HDR to those next generation smartphones, because it does make a difference. 4K is too data heavy, it's too rich, small screens, you don't get the benefit of it. HDR, the clearer definition on those smaller screens is stunning, and it was stunning. And we're doing more trials, and that will roll out absolutely as part of our core service moving forward. I'm already over my time, so I could just keep going. But where are we going? So Heart of Sport, it's all about personalisation for me. It's all about mobile first, not mobile first, creating content just for that screen, but how you get content onto your bigger screen. So casting, all those other mechanisms, big screen apps. There's a talk tomorrow from one of my colleagues, object-based delivery. Absolutely phenomenal opportunity where you can really start breaking a broadcast down. And for a broadcaster, that's quite scary, but we create all the content and curate all the content that enables that to happen. But giving those people that choice, being able to select what you want, push it up, watch live sport how you want to watch it with the stats you want to watch, that may be different to how your person next to you wants to watch it, really key. 5G, really exciting. Not as a consumer proposition, I'm not sure what that is. But we are planning to do in November, it will be again the first, full remote production over 5G. Now 5G for me, creating that virtual fibre in the air is really exciting. We've done remote production over 4G, believe it or not, and that's great until you get a lot of people turn up to an event, and then no matter how good your bonding is, you lose some cameras. 5G is a phenomenal opportunity, and we're really going to be pushing forward on that for our infrastructure side for remote, because if you take cost out of having to send people to events, you can put more into the innovation around the content you're providing to your audience. So I think that's it really for me. It's basically to say, you know, and you don't hear this very often, but I'm very proud to be a broadcaster. It's very out of vogue, isn't it? Unless I'm on a platform somewhere or I'm OTT, then it's a bit of a sin. But you know, you've got to remember, what is my job? I don't care about platforms. We can deliver to all different platforms, and we do deliver to all different platforms. My job is to curate a story to give to our audiences that they want to watch. And that's not going to go away regardless of what platform you're on, regardless of your form of mechanism. That's what our job is, and I think it's really exciting where we're going. So I'll shut up now.